Thank you for joining us for another episode of the Let's Dream podcast. Today we have another dreamer interview. And before we get into the interview, I just wanted to give you a heads up. This was a dreamer that's actually on the other side of the globe, and the connection for some reason wasn't very good. We couldn't get it just right. So I just wanted to give you that heads up before we get into the interview. And without further ado, here we go. Okay, well, thank you everybody for joining us. Today on the podcast, we have another dreamer interview. And the guest today is Rex. How's it going, Rex?
Yeah, I'm fine. How's it going for you?
Pretty good. Thank you so much for joining me. So you have posted a lot of really interesting dreams, and you clearly have a very interesting mind and kind of like the way that your dreams are put together. And so today we'll be going over a couple of different things. But I wanted to ask, there's a lot of different reasons why people say that, like we dream. There's like the scientific reason, like we need to rest. And then there's other, like throughout history, people have believed, dreams can be like a message from the gods or talking to your ancestors. Why do you think we dream, and what do you think is the importance of dreaming?
Well, if you asked me that question in the 7th grade, I would have answered like, oh, it's just a scientific reason. It's just like random messages throughout your neurons and random things like that. I would say like a scientific explanation. However, ever since the 8th grade, since I had like a big personality change from a scientific mind to a more creative one, I can today give you a different answer. I would give it like that dreams are influenced by your personality, by your experience, and just a little bit of randomness and creativity, I would say.
Okay, great. Yeah, no, that's a good answer. Now, there's something interesting about dreams where there's a weird kind of like, we're not always in control of dreams. Like sometimes we're just watching them. Sometimes we're in the dream, interacting. And other times you can become lucid in the dream and actually take full control of the dream. Have you ever experienced any lucid dreams?
Well, I have only really experienced one real lucid dream. Other times I've just like become conscious of the dream if it went too crazy, and I would just like end the dream. Like it's too unrealistic for me, so it ends. But I only had really one real lucid dreaming experience.
Okay. Now, why do you think we do that? So, like, obviously, dreams can be kind of like a reflection of a person's personality and their experiences, like you said. But what do you think is the significance of lucid dreaming, or why some people have the ability to lucid dream?
On that subject, I really don't really know a lot. All I can say, perhaps they somehow managed to take a bit more control. They have a bit more control of their thoughts, and so I don't really know. So I can't really answer that.
No problem. Thank you for your honesty. Well, let me ask you this then. So there's a certain amount of like attention and awareness that is required for lucid dreaming, and one thing that we often discuss on the podcast is consciousness. And if you had to explain consciousness to somebody, or like to a child, or maybe like to an alien if they visited Earth, and because we're clearly self-aware and conscious, how would you explain consciousness to somebody?
I would say that consciousness is the ability for a being to recognize itself, not just in a way that like biologically recognizes, but like on a more higher intellectual level. Like you can ask the question, wow, I am I. It's not just, oh, it's not another being. It's I'm an individual. I'm unique in a sense.
Okay. I can see that. And then, so that being said, I know you. I think you had mentioned that you study history. Is that your major, or if I'm correct me if I'm mistaken?
Yes, I do study history, and it is my major.
Okay. Now, throughout history, do you see any? Is there any culture or any actual significance that you see where dreams specifically have played a role in some way in culture or society? Can you give an example or one that sticks out to you, maybe?
Well, there was this interesting chapter in Greek and Roman history we had when Herodotus was talking about the Persians. He apparently told a story in which the reasons why the Persians invaded Greeks are because their king had like a literally a dream in which a man appeared to him and he said, "You have to attack the Greeks, otherwise you'll be a disgrace to your nation." And so he was like influenced by that reappearing dream throughout the day. So he decided to invade, according to Herodotus. So that's according to him why the Persians attacked the Greeks, or at least one of the reasons why.
Oh wow, wow, that's really cool. I didn't know that. Well, what was the name of the Persian king that attacked?
Xerxes.
Xerxes. Okay, that's what I thought. I didn't want to say. Okay, that's because of the movie 300. It made me think of that. Okay, very cool. I didn't know that. Um, so yeah, that's actually a really good point. So dreams are very, and this is something we talked about just recently on the podcast. But dreams are not one directional. You know, people often think of dreams as oh, it's just an experience. You know, it's kind of like going to the movies and you just watch a movie and like, oh, that was cool, and then it's done. But oftentimes from dreams, there's lingering feelings. You know, you have the dream and then you wake up and like those feelings can carry on with you throughout the day and sometimes even impact your decision to do something in real life, kind of like the Xerxes. Have you ever had a dream that impacted your decision in the waking life?
Well, there were a few dreams after I woke up, which I had a bit of an emotional, like, how should I say? I became emotional after I woke up. There were like some sad dreams that I had. There were some like psychological horror dreams. When I woke up, I had like a bit of a thing, but that a dream that really had an impact on my life, that I made like certain actions. Not really, not as much as I can recall that any dream had such much of an impact on me.
Okay. Okay, that's fair. Um, Now, how about this? Have you now, like whenever you dream, obviously the world that you experience in the dream often feels just as realistic as this world that we're in right now. Um, have you ever had a dream that felt maybe in a way more real than this reality?
Well, this is kind of a common occurrence. It's like almost like in almost every dream, almost all my dreams are pretty realistic. There's like not too much fantasy or breaking the rules of physics in my dreams for the most part. So for the most part, it's all like there was like it's almost like a kind of a memory, like an event that could have happened but didn't, or like in a parallel universe this happened, and like my brain has a tendency of to troll me a bit with certain things in my dreams. So yeah, that's not nice, but whatever.
Okay, yeah, good point. It's dreams can be like that sometimes. Do you care to share an experience where your brain trolled you?
Well, let me see. Oh, yeah, there were quite a few dreams of like my dream like chose me like in the dream I had like a girlfriend, but then I wake up and like, come on, dream really? Did you really think that was a
Okay,
nice thing to do? So,
yeah,
yeah.
that's kind of funny, but I think we've all had that dream once or twice before. Um, how about have you ever had a dream? So while you're dreaming, and then you have another dream within the dream. Has that ever happened to you?
Well, there was one dream that I remember particularly, but it was like it was not one dream. It was like three separate. It was like a dream broken in like three parts. They were like unconnected to one another. In one dream, I was like on a roller coaster ride with my best friend, and then they just ended. Then like on the second part, I was like one of my acquaintances in high school. I was just in a hotel talking about random stuff, and like then that ended randomly. And then on like the third portion of that dream, I was just like in a Japanese World War II concentration camp, but not really, because I
Oh,
figured it out. It was like not during wartime, so I was like, oh, we're in a summer camp, and that was like then it ended there. And then I woke up, so that was kind of weird for me, like three segmented parts of a dream. But I don't know if that's quite as what you said, but that's what I experienced.
okay. Wow. So, so you dreamt you were in a Japanese concentration camp, and then it turned out to be like a summer camp. Is that what you said?
Yes, yes. Because there was like before I had like a similar dream, but in that dream I knew that I was in like a summer camp, so it was like retroactively I remembered. Oh, I'm not in a concentration camp. I'm in a summer camp. So that's how I like remembered that.
Okay. Okay. Wow. Yeah, it's really interesting how dreams can sometimes they start off one way and then they change either for the better or for the worst, and it's almost like instantaneous. It almost feels like. Um, Now, other than that, have you ever had a dream where it's like because I know you said that you have like really fairly realistic dreams. Have you ever had a dream that repeated multiple times, or like because almost everybody I feel like has had a dream that it's like reoccurs to them, kind of like how you mentioned with Xerxes. Apparently, he had the dream reoccurring. Have you ever had a reoccurring dream?
Yes, I had like one dream that like almost completely reoccurred two times. It was like and there were like two it was like two endings like in like the first version of the dream, like the plot of the dream was that me and a few of my high school acquaintances just like went to a factory like controlled by Skynet and like on Terminator, and like we had to stop Skynet before it like destroys the world. And so we like went in and did a lot of crazy things, and through a quite a complicated chain of events, we ended up destroying Skynet and winning. And then, like in the other version, when we tried to do the exact same thing we did in the last version, it didn't work. Skynet killed us and we failed. I literally said game over. So that was like a different version of the dreams. Yeah.
Oh wow, that's really cool. Um, if you don't mind me asking, how did you guys end up taking down Skynet in the dream?
Like in the first version, we literally ambushed like there was like a version of the robot that like represented the entire AI. So we literally just ambushed it and like put a chip in its mouth and then it exploded. And so we won like that way. But the second version it like stopped us mid doing that same thing and just said like and just killed us. And that was it.
Oh wow, wow. So and the second time it was almost the exact same dream.
Yes, it was almost like the same dream up until that point. It like figured it out and was like, you ain't doing the same thing to me again. I was like, fail.
Wow. How long did that dream last? Like how long did it feel like was it over the course of like in the dream did it feel like you were planning for like weeks or months, or was it how long did it feel like?
Oh, it was like the duration of like an entire like night, like from dusk to dawn, effectively. Like it ended in dawn, and like we either failed or we either went. So yeah.
Okay. Now, have you ever had a dream that felt like it lasted maybe like days or weeks?
Oh, there was this one dream. Um, it kind of did like a jump skip of time. But at the first, I didn't know how much it skipped time. But then when I went back to my mother and told her, like, I was like in the dream, I knew I was gone for a long time. And I told her mother I'm back, and she told me, like, you missed school. And that was it. But then I figured out I've been gone for 500 days. So it was kind of like bizarre ending. Like, you just He was just concerned that I missed school instead of me being missing for 500 days.
Wow, that's great. I mean, very interesting. Um, how about this? Have you ever, like, because that seems like a really long time, like 500 days, but like when you woke up at that point, like, have you ever had like a dream where you wake up out of the dream and it just like, it takes you a while to kind of like remember who you are in this waking reality where it's kind of like, oh, wait, that was just a dream. Have you had that?
Well, not really, because usually I am my own character in my dreams. I am myself in my dreams. I don't usually take roles of other characters, except for like few like episodes or moments of time. But usually I'm just me. So when I wake up, it was just like my adventure, and so it was like whatever. And let's continue on.
Okay. Okay. Um, now, so you usually, whenever you dream, it's kind of like, it's you and your own character and, just like, you said realistic, almost kind of like realistic, scenarios, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, have you ever worked on something in real life or like trying to come up with an answer to something or a solution, and then all of a sudden the answer comes to you in a dream? Have you ever had that?
So it was like a weird dream, like a kind of funny dream in like eighth or seventh grade I had. It was like I was like we had a test in our language, and then I was like wondering, I wonder how much I'll get from the test. And literally in the dream, I was in the classroom and she gave me a test and I was like, you got a C. Oh, I was like, okay. Then I went to school and I was like, you got a C. Oh, that makes sense. That was in the
That's
it kind of predicted like that I would get a C.
now. Do you think that your dream was able to predict that? Excuse me, because you were able to kind of like piece together, like, oh, okay, I probably know this material this well, so I'll probably get a C. Do you think like your brain was able to just kind of like calculate that in the dream?
Yes, to a certain degree, and also like from past experiences, I almost always got a C from my language, so it was like that.
Okay.
So
Oh,
that's
yeah.
a kind of a logical deduction of facts.
That makes sense. That's cool. Um, now, another interesting thing that I like to ask is, um, do you by any chance meditate at all in any way?
Not really. When I pray, that can kind of be considered like meditation, but like other than that, I don't actively meditate.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I agree. Praying is a lot like meditating, and the reason I ask is because me personally, I do meditate. I didn't used to, but I did start to meditate just because some people suggested that it might have an effect on my dreams, which it has. Um, do you do you feel like do you ever have any kind of religious dreams, or like this praying? Do you feel like in any way has impacted your dreams in any way?
Oh yeah, there was this one interesting dream. Perhaps you read it on my DeviantArt page. It was like a dream in like which my entire like high school class and I went on a helicopter to like a temple in Tibet, and like we were like armed to the teeth. We were like not real archaeologists, but like we were archaeologists, or like just armed archaeologists, I guess. So we went in, we landed in the court, like in the big courtyard of the temple. Then like we spread out, and it was then like then at that point in the dream, where like the camera went from my first person perspective to like the perspective of my other uh, classmates, and like then they all like started dying. Like one fell into a pit of spikes, one got impaled by like a statue, one fell from high ground, and then it like went back to me as I realized, oh, we are all dying. So I started rushing back to like the helicopter point, and I kept hearing the screams of them all dying. And then like again got back to the courtyard, like the screams had stopped, and I was like, I wonder if anyone survived. And then like I saw one of my classmates coming across, and I was like, oh, you survived. But then like as he came closer, I figured out that like, nah, you're dead, man, because he had like a hole in his chest because he was like pierced by one of the statues,
Oh,
and
wow.
like, and then as he started closing, then from like there were like the courtyard was like surrounded by pillars, and so from each of the pillars, one of my classmates came out, and they like started walking towards me. And as they walked closer, I noticed like they were all dead. They had like white eyes and everything, but they weren't like zombies. They were like, I don't know, souls trapped in dead bodies. If that makes sense. And so they like coming closer to me, and like they all like start talking, like saying, you have to die, you have to die." And I started backing up, but then like hit a dead end, and I knew I couldn't back out anymore. So they like made a semicircle around me, and they all said like, "You have to die." Then I asked them, "Why do I have to die?" And then they said, "Because this is the temple of God, and no one can leave this place alive." And so they all start to close in, and then I'll decide, you know what? I'm not going to go out this way. So I pulled out the grenade, and then like I blew myself up, and then with me. And so that was like when I died. And then we went into our like spirit form, which were just like our physical form, but without any like wounds or anything. We were just like in our bodies, but in spirit form. And so we all like kind of looked at each other. We understood that now we could leave. And then we went to the center of the courtyard, I'm sorry. And then we looked up, and it was literally like the heavens opened up, and like we were welcomed into the kingdom of God. So yeah, that's how it ended. It was kind of quite nice. When I woke up, it made me kind of think quite a lot.
Wow. Yeah, man, that's quite the dream. That is a very cool dream. So, what did the heavens look like in the dream?
It was just like I just saw like a god ray, like a generic god ray. I didn't see much after that because the dream ended right after that. So unfortunately, I never got to see my interpretation of heavens. Oh yeah.
Okay. Huh. How about have you ever had a dream about hell? Like I'm interested to hear what your interpretation of hell might be if you had a dream about it.
No, I didn't really have a dream about hell. Not really. So
Okay.
yeah.
Cuz one time I had a dream about hell, and it was just like it was the worst thing that I can imagine, which was just a bunch of people and everybody had to do like paperwork all day, every day. Everybody was sitting behind the desk and doing paperwork.
Bureaucracy, the
Yeah,
biggest enemy.
yeah,
Uh,
exactly. That was my hell.
if I may ask, what's your view on religion?
Um, well, so I'm Christian, and um, it's weird because I've studied Hinduism, and I've read the Bhagavad Gita, and I've read a lot of the Eightfold Path in Buddhism, and it's I don't think I don't know. I think that people don't actually know. It's hard to explain, but um, I would say there's definitely a lot of good in religion, and people throughout history have used it to manipulate the meaning of different religions and to try to to control other people with it. But really, I really like all religion. It's kind of weird. I mean, I consider myself Christian mostly because I really like everything that Christ said. But
Mhm.
I don't know. There's a lot of stuff that I disagree with in the Bible, though. So it's hard to say. But I would say mostly Christian. Although I do lean a lot on Buddhism and the teachings of Buddhism. So it's really odd. What about yourself?
Well, I'm also a Christian myself. I believe like in Jesus Christ in our all one Almighty God. But I also believe that I don't think all these religions were just like I don't know fabrications of the mind. I do believe they were kind of like they had like for in my how should I say it in my thinking, in my belief, I do believe all those other religions in the world, either polytheistic or monotheistic, were kind of like an inspiration. They had to have like a divine inspiration. And so perhaps it was all up to other interpretations, because it doesn't make sense to me that all people who lived before Christ was born would be damned to hell because they didn't follow the religion of the Jews. That doesn't make sense to me.
Exactly. Yes. So I don't know. But I also think there's a lot that's lost in languages and a lot that's lost in interpretation, because it's kind of like playing broken telephone, like over time, people kind of lose the meaning because the language changes and then it's not even the same language anymore. I really think, a lot of the, like the Abrahamic religions, there's an overarching theme of trying to achieve some kind of a balance. And same in Buddhism. It's like some kind of a balance or order which helps humanity kind of live, and work. But I do, because there's also a lot of, there's wisdom in all religions, but yeah, I agree. I don't think people are damned, prior to, I don't know. It's kind of strange, but I like that you brought that up. And there's also a lot of similarities. To me, there's a lot of similarities with religion and dreams, because dreams can be so insightful and very, very interesting. And everybody has, like that's one thing that I actually really like about dreams, is that everybody has dreams at some point or another. It's not exclusive to just some people. It's like a very, very innate part of being a human being. And even in Christianity, I think, there's several stories of dreams in the Bible. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was an angel that came to Mary in a dream and told her that she would be having Christ. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So there's a lot of, there's a definite significance to dreams that I think is often overlooked in the modern world. Although the same could be said about religion, I would say. But I'm guessing because you're a historian, you've studied other religions too, right?
Oh, that wasn't really our focus. It was more like a sideshow. We were like focused on like the politics and economic development and cultural changes throughout the world, but like it was kind of like a sideshow for most of the time. So yeah, we didn't really learn too much about the religions. I could have went to like an extra like bonus class to like learn about more like Eastern religions. However, it didn't fit in my schedule, so I couldn't go there, unfortunately.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this then. Out of your understanding of history and the world, would you say, if you can think of any, is there a culture or a country that had more of an emphasis on dreams than any other that you can think of?
Well, honestly, in like like in almost every instance of religions that we studied in history, it was always like the big point of those religions, those old religions, was like mysticism in a way, and like dreams were uh, kind of like a pretty big deal in those ancient religions. However, the importance of dreams also went on through the other newer religions, like the Abrahamic religions and so on. So it was like it's kind of pretty consistent throughout the human existence of the world that dreams had an impact on people.
Okay. Now,
Because, like, for example, Emperor Constantine the Great had a dream before a battle that if he put the sign of the cross on his soldier shields, he would win the battle. So he did that, and he won the battle, and he legalized Christianity after that in Roman Empire. So it was like the importance of that dream was like quite significant. I would think so, because it effectively allowed the complete spread of Christianity effectively throughout the Roman Empire, and Christianity would play a big role in the medieval history of Europe, definitely.
Wow, I didn't know that. That's incredible. Yeah, that's another really really great, important, significant kind of impact from dreams into the real world. Wow, that's great. So yeah, I mean, because I know in ancient Egypt that there was I forget the name of him, but there was a pharaoh who believed that this, what was it, the Sphinx had told him to restore it, so he did, and it's like they made him pharaoh for it, but he, like, the Sphinx in the dream told the pharaoh to restore him, so he followed his dream, and that was a, I don't know, that was a really interesting one. But I know the ancient Egyptians had a lot of put a lot of emphasis on dreams, and they had like dream temples. But I didn't know that about Emperor Constantine. That's pretty cool. Well, let me ask you this. So we're getting towards the end of the interview here, but I always like to have. You've already shared some really interesting stories with us. I like to have the guest usually just give one or two dream stories that really stick out to them, that they really like sharing with people. Do you have one that you think is really interesting and kind of like sticks out, just like the other ones that you've shared, that you would like our listeners to hear?
Yes, but before I start, I would just like to say that most of the dreams I had happened after seventh grade, so in eighth grade, when I had that big personality change. Before that time, I really had like three dreams, and like one of them was literally like when I was 5, and it was just like it was like a very short dream in which like in dream like I woke up, I went to my kitchen because I heard a noise, and it was like a big mess, and then like I concluded, oh, we've been robbed, and that's when I like woke up. So that was like the very first dream I ever had. However, of the most significant dreams, here's some that I'll tell. My favorite dream. This is like this is one of my favorite dreams I'll now share. I had it in my freshman year of high school, and like here was the plot of the dream. So one day we were just like having a normal class in high school, when suddenly the headmaster came into our room and told us, like, all of you come to my office now. And so we did. We all went to his office and like we waited a bit, and then in the room came like the admiral of our country, like the supreme admiral of our country. And then like he came to us, he inspected us for a bit, and then like he said this. All right, kids, listen up. Um, there's been a new situation coming on, developing. An American destroyer has been like raiding our coast and destroying our infrastructure in the coastal provinces. So we decided to do something about it. However, since our surface navy could never like battle that destroyer, we decided to buy a submarine from the Russians. However, since we don't have any submariners, we decided to conscript you into the Navy. So like, come on, all follow me. And they were like, okay. And so then like, there was like, after that, there was like a scene where there was like a map of our country, and there's like a red line showing us like taking a train from like our capital all the way to our like biggest port city. And then after that, we were like in the port city itself. We went into it was like a submarine pen, and then like he told us some information about the destroyer, where it is, and then like he gave us uniforms, and then we all went on to a submarine, and then we all sailed out. And so as we sailed, here's the thing though, this was like I know this is like a Russian Oscar class submarine. It was like a late Cold War submarine. And the thing about submarines after World War II effectively is that they are not supposed to be above water most of the time. They're supposed to be like literally almost the entire time underwater. However, since I played a lot of Silent Hunter 3, which is a World War II simulation game about submarines, I decided to use World War II tactics. I had my submarine surfaced. I had like a watch crew on the conning tower, and then we just like sailed and sailed. If we did that in real life, it would have been destroyed. So yeah, it's just like dream logic kind of. And so we sailed and sailed, and then like all of a sudden, one of my watchman said like alarm, alarm, ship spotted. However, he said like in German, which was weird, since we don't speak German in my country. But like I guess because of the influence from the game, we had to be speaking German. So
Okay.
so then I crash dived periscope depth, and then like I opened sorry, I like rose the telescope up, and like then I saw like the destroyer coming, and then I began to give orders like in German. I got prepared everything for a torpedo attack. An interesting detail is that I used like a World War II like uh, a targeting computer for torpedoes instead of like a more modern version. So we used World War II technology on a late Cold War submarine. So that was also a discrepancy, but whatever. And so like I prepared everything, and then I told them like to fire torpedo. But then like one of my classmates told me, "Sir, we cannot do that." I was like, "Why not? We don't have any torpedoes." Then I began to like rage and rant a bit because they forgot to arm us with torpedoes and supply our boat with torpedoes. And then I was like, all right then we'll use one of ours as a torpedo. So then we like chose, and there was like there's this one classman in our how should I say in our class, obviously, and he always like he shaved his head bald. So I was like, yes, you are perfect for torpedo usage. So we like loaded him into the tube, head first into the tube, and then like everything was ready. And then I like fired the torpedo, and so he was fired out of the submarine. Then the camera went from my first person perspective to his like to perspective of like looking him as he like went towards the destroyer, and then it was like kind of a cinematic view. It was like he managed to punch through the armor with his bald head. He started to he started to bounce around in the engine room and like completely destroyed it, and then went out of the destroyer. And then when he went out of the destroyer, like the entire destroyer exploded, and then like went back to my view, and I was like looking through the periscope, and I like saw like the big explosion, and then I was like, we got it, man, got it. We all started to celebrate, and somehow he managed to get back into the submarine through the same torpedo tube he was launched out of. And then we're like, yeah, we won. And then like that was like end of that. Then we went like end of that scene. Then in the next scene we were like coming back to base. Then we like docked. We went into formation, and then like the admiral congratulated us and gave us all a medal for our service to our country. And then like we decided to go home. And so then the next scene after that was us literally walking towards our high school. But then as we saw our high school, we saw that it was like reduced to rubble. And then we saw like our headmaster there, and we asked him what happened, and he told us the Americans in retaliation decided to bomb our high school, and that was it. And that's when the dream ended.
Oh, wow. Man, so the guy with the bald head, he just like swam back into the submarine and lived and came back with you guys.
Yes. That's why it was one of my. It is my favorite dream still to this day. So yeah, that was
That's
quite fun.
did you tell your friend in real life?
Yes, I told him that dream, and he had like a bit of a laugh, and he was like, he even told me like, "Well, I'm so efficient, I'm torpedo efficient." So yeah.
That's great. That's great. That's awesome. Thank you. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I haven't heard that like anything like that before. That's great. Um, well, okay. Did you have any other dreams that you wanted to share?
There are so many. Let me think of one. Uh, yes. Here, let me tell you the dream of. Oh yes, my my little time traveling dream, and this was a fun one. So the dream was like here was the plot of the dream. So it was like I had this dream like sophomore year of my high school, and so here was the plot. We were like it was like test day in Latin. We had a test in Latin, and then like we had it. She graded it instantly, and like when we got it back, I discovered that I got an F. I failed the Latin test. Then after class, there was like three of us that gathered together, And we were like, you know what? We cannot allow this to happen. And then like one suggested, I have a time machine. We could change this. And I was like, you know what? Yeah, let's do this. And so we went to his house, which I've never been to in real life. And like he really did have like a time machine. It kind of looked like, I don't know, it was like a TARDIS, but not really. It was black instead of blue, and had like some other smaller differences, but other than that, it was pretty much like the telephone booth from Doctor Who. And
Okay.
so we went in, and we like went through time, and so then we like, and this happened like this was like a day after this, so we went effectively back to the day of the test, and so went back to the test, the day of the test, and then like we got off our thing, and then we asked, now what? Then like we started like debating for a few minutes what to do. Then we saw ourselves, like that version of ourselves coming together, and they were like, we know what to do now. So we literally like waited behind the wall, and as they passed us, we all somehow took out knives and then like killed ourselves, like that version of ourselves.
Oh
hit our
man.
bodies, hit our bodies, and then we took our backpacks, and then we were like, okay, now let's do this. So we went to class after killing ourselves effectively, and then we decided, you know what? Since we know what's going to be on the test, let's make like cheat sheets. And I was like, excellent. And so we made cheat sheets, and then we had a test. Our teacher came, she gave us the tests. However, there's a twist. This is a different version of the test, so our cheat sheets were useless. So we failed again. So after that, we again met up and, okay, let's do this again. We went back to our time machine. We went back in time again. And when we got back in time and we exited, we saw ourselves killing ourselves. So we decided to kill ourselves again. So we took all of our things again, and then we went back to class. This time, somehow we knew that we've gotten into like the same timeline. So this time we definitely knew that this was like going to be the same test. So we made like cheat sheets again. But then, once again we got our test, something went wrong. It was like something was wrong with the sheets, and they were like useless. And so we failed yet again. And then we once again went back. And once again, we decided, let's go back in time. And so we literally did. And so we went back in time once again. Then we saw ourselves killing ourselves after we had killed ourselves. So we killed ourselves yet again. And yet again, we took our backpacks. And yet again, we went to class. And this time, once we were there, we had this like brilliant idea. We're going to write everything down on the blackboard. And so we did. We wrote every possible thing on the blackboard. And like the teacher came, she handed our tests and was like, oh, she didn't notice. And I was like, cool. And so I started writing like the Latin test. But then as I looked up, I saw that we didn't write anything in Latin, but all in English. So it was like, no. And yet we all failed the test. And this time, once we came back, we were like, all right, listen up. We're going to go back and past one more time. But this time we have to do everything right. And so we were like, okay, fine. And so we went back in time. However, as we were going back in time, again, this time something went wrong. And like two of my other classmates disappeared. And I was just like alone. I was like, no, where did they go? And then the time machine stopped. And then as I rushed out of it, as I didn't want to disappear, I looked around and saw that like there was like everything was white. There was like no terrain, there was no sky, no water. Everything was like white. And I was like, what? Where am I? And then as I started to look around, here's what I saw. I saw chaos, historical chaos. I saw Napoleonic armies fighting against the Roman legions. I saw entrenched World War I soldiers mowing down ancient Persians. I saw jet planes destroying medieval castles, and I saw like the Japanese World War II Navy fighting the Athenian classical maybe. And as I watched all this happen, I suddenly got a headache and decided to like sit down. And as I sat down, I was like, "What's going on? What is this?" And then like the camera went into third person and started to zoom out from me and started to see like the entire like chaos ensue and me just watching it. And that's when the dream ended.
Wow. Wow, what a dream. Man. Jeez. Um I mean, that was great. That was so you killed yourselves 5 times, was it?
1, 2, 3, about 4 times, yes.
4 times. Just to pass a test. Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah,
That
it's quite crazy.
that's funny. I can see that being like a skit, like on a comedy or something, but it's interesting how it ended though. Why do you think it ended that way? Is it
I think
because
we broke the timeline. We broke like the historical timeline, so it was just like chaos. Like we went back in time too much, and like we messed something up, but that was it. That was all it took.
Yeah, well, odd question then. If you had the chance to, in real life, if you had the chance to go back in time, would you?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I would like to see some things in person, let's just say. However, I would also like to come back in time because I wouldn't like to be stuck in time. So yeah,
Okay,
that's
so
it.
you would want to just go back just to observe, but not necessarily interact with anything?
Yes, yes. I don't think interacting with the history is the best idea, as it could cause some time travel troubles. So yeah.
Okay, I agree. See, I like that answer the best because if I had a time machine, I would want to go back and watch, but I don't want to mess anything up. So
Yes, that's
great. Well, hey, that was a really cool dream. Thank you for sharing that. I'm sure our listeners enjoyed that one. Um, so that's a really good one. So we'll stop it there, and we'll go ahead and I'll work on everything. But I really appreciate you sharing these with us and coming on the show, Rex. I really enjoyed talking to you, and hopefully because you have a lot of really interesting dreams, and I did take a look at your DeviantArt account, and I see that the dreams that you posted. So maybe if you're up to it, I would love to have you back sometime.
oh, definitely. If you want to share some more dreams, I'll up to it.
Great. Perfect. Well, I thank you for joining us, and I hope you have a good rest of your day.
All right. Thanks as well to you.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.